What's good, everybody? It's the real AG here, back at you again on the Lockdown Defense Sports Network. And as my boy, Coach Defense, prefaced to y'all earlier in the week with the 2025 offseason in full freaking swing, we are bringing you an exciting weekly series that we like to call Tags, Titles, and Resignations. We're going to be bringing you a little 2025 offseason preview for each team in their respective divisions. Look at cap situation, pending free agents, potential tag candidates, players we think may get the bag from their own team and stay from their, in their city, and some potential cut candidates as some of these teams probably look to free up some financial burden. So, with that, let's just dive right into it. And today, I may still be repping my Chiefs, but we are not going to be talking about them nor the AFC West. I'm going to be talking about the dreaded NFC South with you guys today. And just kind of looking first and foremost at each team's cap situation as we roll into the new year. You got the Tampa Bay Bucks, negative 800,000, which isn't terrible, but in the red nonetheless. We got Atlanta Falcons, negative 14.5 mil in the hole, which not that great. And the New Orleans Saints, as everyone could probably have anticipated, as given what they've done the past few years, are looking at a staggering 59.5 million in the hole in cap space as they currently are situated. And to round things out, we got the Carolina Panthers, who at least are in the green, with 15.3 mil in space. Just looking at what these teams may consider to do in this offseason and retool their rosters, we got to first look at the notable free agents for each squad. So not a whole lot of big names or huge contributors just looking at the list, but key cogs in the machine for these teams in the past few seasons. So looking at Tampa Bay, we got Chris Godwin, who many anticipate to be a sought-after wide receiver in this market. Tampa Bay lifer, Levante David, and Ben Bredeson, who was a starting guard for them in 2024. For New Orleans, we got Chase Young, who carries the draft pedigree and has been around a little bit, but hey, we got Juwan Johnson, their tight end, and Willie Gay Jr., who shout out former Chief. For the Carolina Panthers, we got starting guard Austin Corbett and both of their safeties in Xavier Woods and Jordan Fuller. And to round things out with the Atlanta Falcons, they have looking at Matt Judon and Justin Simmons as pending free agents for 2025. So just, thinking about how they're going to retool their roster, first and foremost with the tag window quickly approaching and some teams already dropping rumors on what they will and won't do with the tag. Let's start looking at some potential tag candidates. So, shocker. I don't think any of these teams really have any potential tag candidates. Looking at Tampa Bay, not a whole lot of notable free agents, as I said. And Godwin would have been probably the likely candidate, but he's already been tagged twice, and Tampa Bay actually just pushed his contract date to the day one of 2025 year. So Tampa Bay actually can't tag him. And the only other person would be Levante David. And, that may make sense to keep him in Tampa Bay, but, it doesn't really bode all that well once you consider what he would get paid in a whopping $27 million at age 36. So it just doesn't make sense for that. Same with, Atlanta Falcons. They don't really have any notable tag candidates. Honestly, what they do with Kirk Cousins is going to be a big indicator as to what happens with their cap situation and what free space they have to make any moves. But really, there's just no one other than Matt Judon that would make sense to tag. And again, kind of like Levante David, the money just isn't there in terms of what he would get if they place that tag on him. The New Orleans Saints, I already said it. It's time to pay the bill for the kicking the can of their cap dilemma that they have been doing these past few years. And, looking at basically 60 million in the hole, it's hard to imagine that they're going to be overly active this offseason. And the pending free agents they have are going to be sought after, and they're not going to be in a position to tag anyone. So none there. and, uh, and round things out with potential tag candidates. Again, Carolina Panthers don't really have any huge notable free agents coming up. They addressed their biggest need, our pending free agent, when they extended Chuba Hubbard. So um, really, really, no one that makes sense to pay that kind of tag money to. Um, so moving on to potential players that I think are going to, get the bag from their team and ultimately stay in their city, or stay with the franchise they've been with. Looking at the Bucks, I think that's Levante David. I already talked about his age, 36. Like, I don't think he's going to command big money on the market. And he's a Tampa Bay lifer. He's a locker room guy. He's an established leader for that franchise. It just makes sense for everyone to bring him back on some kind of team friendly deal and just let the guy retire a buck. And for the Atlanta Falcons, looking at Matt Judon, I think if this was last offseason, I'd be like, no way, with their situation and the money that he would command, coming off of, or I guess it was 2 years ago, 15 and a half sacks. But, with Judon, you're looking at a guy that Atlanta traded a third round pick for, to New England to get in the eve of the start of this year in the hopes of bolstering their pass rush. He was coming off a bicep surgery, but they didn't really see that huge return on investment. I think he had 1.5 sacks as a total this year, but things really picked up later in the year for him, and I think he started to show some of that vintage Judon, if you will. So I kind of expect, similar to David, he's not going to command big money on the market. I think Atlanta's going to want to try to recoup some of their investment, or realize, the draft capital they traded, and, ultimately bring him back on a team friendly deal as well. Looking at the Saints again, like, they are in cap hell, and I mean hell, and they don't really have, the bandwidth right now to be negotiating with, like the likes of Chase Young or Juwan Johnson, who I expect to be sought after to a good degree on the free agent market. But I think you look at a guy in Paulson Adebo, who, he's been a corner for them for the past few years. He's coming off of a broken femur. I think he can be re-signed for the right price, given the injury he's coming off of, and kind of the rest of the cornerback market, if you will. And then, rounded things out as a re-sign guy, for the Carolina Panthers. Again, like, a lot of not a notable free agents. They are a rebuilding franchise, so I think we'll look to get younger. But they're ultimately going to want to retool their defense, which was ranked dead last. And I think having, like Levante David, a Carolina lifer, and Shaq Thompson to stay in that locker room, get some continuity with the leadership and presence of how things are supposed to be done. And again, he's coming off of an injury as well. So similar to some of these other guys, he's not going to command a lot. He's aging. And I think it just makes sense for both sides to sign him to, a team friendly deal, let him finish his career in Carolina, but meanwhile, keep some of that, veteran locker room leadership presence for this, hopefully, youth revolt franchise that Carolina is working with. And then to finish things out for our NFC South 2025 offseason preview, I wanted to talk about what I, so eloquently titled "They Gone" in a list of players for each of these teams that I think are ultimately going to get the cut, or the X, if you will, given their severance package to go find greener pastures, to free up some cap space, or just ultimately, move on, just as teams try to get younger and progress. So, looking at the Bucks, I think the perfect candidate for that is Jameel Dean, cornerback. He is currently carrying a $15.2 million cap hit for 2025. And some of you may be like, who the hell is Dean? Exactly. And that cap hit, for your reference, is the 8th highest in the league among cornerbacks. He's about to be 29. He's never been a big play producer, or a true shutdown corner. and has missed 9 games over the last 2 years. So I expect him to be the primo block candidate for Tampa Bay, looking to trim up some cap space. Down to Atlanta, I think Kirk Cousins could be a little bit of the big candidate here on what they may do with that, and Michael Penix. But, I think Grady Jarrett is also one that needs to be considered, a big staple in Atlanta, but his on-field production these past couple years has not really matched the star power that he used to carry, or at least gets paid to carry. And just looking at the fact that he's about to be 32 and cutting him frees up 16.25 million. I think that makes sense for the Atlanta Falcons. And then moving on to the New Orleans Saints, I like Kirk Cousins. I get it. Derek Carr is absolutely the low-hanging fruit here. We've already seen Kellen Moore not be very committal about him staying with the franchise. But either way we look at it, I think it makes the most sense for them to restructure Carr. That frees up potentially $30 million in cap space and put some other players and aging veterans on the chopping block, a la Cam Jordan. Another, New Orleans lifer, but he's basically been relegated to a backup role. He's not the dominant edge rushing force he used to be. And if they cut him, particularly after June 1st, that would be the most logical step to free up space, because you're looking at, freeing up, approximately $16 million by making a move like that. And then to finish things out with the Carolina Panthers, maybe stating the obvious here, but Miles Sanders. I mean, the writing has been on the wall for Miles Sanders ever since Carolina hacked Frank Wright in 2023, who, he was the one that ultimately pushed for Sanders, signed him to this 4-year deal, and he's basically done absolutely nothing. Then when you couple that with the fact that they already extended Hubbard, they have Jonathan Brooks kind of waiting in the stables, and cutting Sanders, frees up $5.23 million in space. I think that's a no-brainer. So, but yeah, that is our preview for the NFC South, ladies and gentlemen. Please be sure to like the video, comment below if you're a fan of one of these squads and agree, disagree, or want to tell me I'm an idiot. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel and be on the lookout for the rest of our NFC offseason preview videos dropping throughout the week.